Thank you for watching this brief video on interviewing brought to you by University Career Services at UNC Chapel Hill. In this session, we want you to think about how you'll prepare for your interview, how to tell your story in that interview, and then what next steps to take after you've completed it. We'll talk about preparation first, and a big part of that is how you show up to the interview. So consider your attire. You're going to want to make sure to dress appropriately for the culture and the position. You've heard the phrase maybe dress for the job that you want. Obviously, you're going to carry yourself professionally. No gum, no smoking, excessive jewelry or fragrances, things of that nature. So it's not always a suit, although it's very often a suit. Again, you're going to depend on that culture and the role you're applying for. If you don't have a suit and you need to consider one, there are some options on campus. The Carolina Closet is an option for students to borrow attire. And there is a grant program here on campus called Styled for Success. You can search for both of those. As it relates to your preparation about you, though, beyond your attire and how you show up, the employer is going to be obviously asking you questions to find out more about you. And some of the things they're going to be interested in are obviously your skills and abilities. Can you complete the job? About your motivation. Will you actually do it if you're selected? Are you someone that they can train and promote within the organization? How will you fit in with their culture? And really, are you interested in the position? So these are the types of things you're going to find a lot of questions based on. And so these are also things you can think about in your own preparation and how you would respond to questions related to them. As you're doing that preparation, there are a lot of things that you can consider as you go. Obviously, you'll want to review the job description very carefully. And you'll want to make connections between your past experiences and the skills and abilities they need for this role. That's really going to be the core of it. But additionally, you're going to want to research the employer and even the industry in which that employer is operating. If this is for an on-campus position, obviously you have to do a little less as it relates to the industry, but you should still know about the department or the unit that you're going to be applying to. And then obviously in terms of your preparation, you're going to want to do some practice. What are some things that make folks stand out in an interview process? Aside from the content of your answers, there are some things that just happen by nature of doing an interview. They can see your confidence level. They can better understand your communication skills and how you approached structuring the responses. They can see your energy level and your enthusiasm. And you can help them transfer your skills from whatever context they were in previously into their setting. And these are all things that you can bring to the table and control aside from the actual stories that you're telling. Additionally, your nonverbal communication tells a lot in the interview process, and that begins obviously with a good handshake, making eye contact, making sure you're not fidgeting or using a lot of filler words like your facial expression, the way you carry yourself, and your pacing in general. All of these things add up to give a sense of who you are and who you would be as a colleague in an interview setting. Obviously, the verbal communication piece of this is incredibly important. You're going to have the opportunity to talk about yourself. You're going to be asked questions that are maybe general in nature, but some that are about your past experiences, some that are about specific situations or behaviors, or some scenarios you might encounter. There are other things that you might encounter in an interview, especially out in the world, and that's understanding the position, knowing what's going on with the department or the unit if it's here on campus, and if it's off campus, obviously understanding the organization and what they're all about. A very common lead question, of course, is tell me about yourself. And this is the opportunity to do a little bit of an overview. You don't want to go all the way back to I was born in ... but you certainly want to talk about where you've been, how you made it to where you are now and what you're doing, and then what you intend to do moving forward. And this can be just a brief 2-minute overview that gives them a good sense of where you've been, who you are, and where you're going. The bulk of most interviews are made up with behavioral questions. And the idea of a behavioral question is that past behaviors are predictive of future behaviors. So you will get questions that often begin with phrases like, tell me about a time when, or give me an example of. And obviously what they'll be asking for will be related to the role that they are hiring for. and what they view as most appropriate and most important for making their selection. But this is why stories are most important in an interview, because you're going to get prompted to tell lots of them. There is a good structure to use when developing your stories. It's called BAR. You're going to consider the background, the action, and the result. So that means you're going to tell a little bit about the context and the task at hand. You're going to talk specifically about what steps were taken, and you want to make sure in this instance you're talking about specific steps that you took. If this was a group project, there's nothing wrong with that, but of course you'll want to make sure that people understand what your role was. And then ultimately talk about the outcome and the results, what happened after you took steps. So use that structure when you think about what you're going to be telling them. Know they're going to ask probably some specific skill-based questions, which you can usually deduce by reading the job description. And then you can go in knowing that I have some stories to tell about those in advance. You'll also, of course, have the opportunity to ask them some questions. And there are a lot of different things you can ask, but the most important thing is to ask questions that are going to help you decide whether or not it's a place you want to be. So some of those might focus on the types of aspects of the job that are challenging, or what's most important to them, how past people have been successful in the role, or things about the organization or the culture of the place. Once the interview is concluded, of course, you're going to want to send a thank you. That can be a written thank you, but obviously it's very common now for those to be electronic, so sending an email thank you is fine. You'll just want to do that very promptly, usually within 24 hours. And each interview is an opportunity to learn, so after you've completed the interview, make sure that you're reflecting on what the experience was like. How did you feel? How did you feel you performed? What might you do better in the next interview? And more importantly, reflect on what you learned about them. Is it a place that you would like to be? Is the culture aligning with what you want? Will the responsibilities be what you want? Will it help achieve your goals as well? As always in this process, University Career Services is here to help you. So if you need to do some practice, or if you need to do some reflection after, don't hesitate to follow up with us either by drop-in or appointment. Thank you.